Hi, everybody. This is Jenny with Hope, Love, and Tat, Healing After a Breast Cancer Diagnosis. I have a book that I'm reviewing today. It's called Cancer Free, Are You Sure? By Jenni Urbachek, I think is how you pronounce it. Can you see that? The book terrified me at first, actually. I had some anxiety about it when I was reading it, and I was like, oh, I can't tell people to read this because it feeds into your fear of not being cancer free and your cancer free status. Because she does describe how, um, people that think they're cancer free may not be. And she says why. But information is good. Hi, Holly. Information is always good. So I'm going to give you all the good stuff in this book and hopefully not cause you the anxiety that this book caused me. The full title of the book is Cancer Free, Are You Sure? A Guide to Early Detection Tests. And so there's a lot of tests in this book. I'm not going to mention all of them. I just wouldn't be able to. And some of them aren't even available, and our doctors won't do them anyway. So I'm going to talk about the first part of her book. The goal of this book, she wants to empower us, detect cancer early for those who have not had cancer, because she believes there are so many tests out there that can detect it way before the scans, that if 4 years ago, if I would have had one of these blood tests and found some cancer cells in my system and changed the way what I was doing back then, is her idea of getting rid of cancer completely in our society by doing these early tests. And she wants to take the fear out of cancer. So imagine if her idea is, it's like on your annual checkup or your every other year checkup, you go in, you have a blood test, they say, you have these cancer cells, go home, change your diet, do some alternative stuff, come back and we will check it again. That wouldn't be as scary as what we go through now. So I do agree with that. She believes a world without cancer is possible if we treated this way in this country. So the first part of the book is Cancer 101, all about cancer cells and healthy cell versus a cancer cell. So I'm going to talk about that because I found it very interesting to know how a cancer cell works, can help you fight it, right? So a healthy cell has a predetermined lifespan. A cancer cell never dies. It just keeps going and going, unlimited lifespan and uncontrolled growth. The healthy cell reproduces only to replace dead or damaged cells and does not reproduce unless that has happened, where a cancer cell just keeps reproducing. This part I thought was interesting, is that a cancer cell uses fermentation to breathe and not oxygen. So that's why sugar can feed cancer and alcohol can feed cancer. That makes more sense to me now. The way cells work is they take oxygen, minerals, all the stuff that we give our body, and the cells use the mitochondria to make energy and breathe. This is very simplified, not scientific at all, my explanation. And that's an aerobic cell. But the cancer cell, they make this little molecule called ATP, which is our energy. And the cancer cell uses fermentation and converts sugar to that ATP molecule. And it thrives in an acidic environment where healthy cells thrive in pH balance or alkaline. Healthy cells thrive on vitamins and minerals, and cancer cells thrive on sugar. A cancer cell has 15 times the insulin receptors of a healthy cell. So they are really sending the message out there, scooping up all the sugar. They can spread and invade where a healthy cell has boundaries. They have loss of regulatory controls, and everything just kind of goes out of control. And a healthy cell has regulated blood supply. Cancer cells has angiogenesis going out of control, making these claw-like vessels around it, which is actually what they see on the scans too, to find them. And a healthy cell can use ketones for energy, and a cancer cell cannot. A healthy cell works with the immune system, and a cancer cell hides from the immune system by covering itself in a protein shell, a protein coat that the immune system can't see. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Some of it I knew. It's some of it's new to me. So there's different cancer types. Carcinoma is the majority of all cancers. Cancer in the epithelial tissue that lines glands or organs as the carcinomas. Sarcoma are malignant tumors growing from connective tissues such as muscle, fat, or bones. Lymphoma is blood in the blood, and that's the white blood cells that are attached to the lymphomas, lymph nodes, blood, and bone. Leukemia is blood cells act abnormal, and it generally starts in the bone marrow. Myeloma develops in plasma cells and stops the body from producing antibodies. So there's two types of cancer cells in our systems, tumor cells and cancer stem cells. Now, tumor cells are in the bloodstream and they are circulating. They can be circulating or they can just be in the tumor. And those are the cells that when we do chemo or anything like that, that's the cells that are being killed off. Now, what a lot of doctors don't tell us is that cancer stem cells are not killed off by treatment at all. And the cancer stem cells hold the DNA of the cancer to produce more cancer, and they don't respond to chemo, radiation, or most of the therapies that we do. They do, however, respond to diet and things like that. So that's why that piece of your lifestyle change is very important to get those cancer stem cells to stop producing cancer. And then there's a huge list of symptoms to never ignore, which if you've already experienced a cancer diagnosis, I mean, I didn't really have that many symptoms, but they talk about weight loss, fever, fatigue, pain, yellow skin or eyes, itching for no reason, wounds that won't heal, bowel issues, digestion issues, trouble swallowing, lumps or masses that you suddenly feel. If you have chronic exposure to chemicals, you should be checked yearly. And if you have chronic stress or emotional turmoil, you should be checked for cancer. Also, viral infections like mono, we kind of all have them in our systems. Mono, which is Epstein-Barr virus, and the herpes virus is in most people. So having a balanced diet and being aware of that can help you, keep those viruses in check so they don't work with your cells to cause cancer. So, she also talked about sugar and lactic acid, and cancer cells ferment sugar for energy and produce lactic acid as a waste product. So a diet high in sugar and carbs can actually fuel cancer. Healthy cells prefer fats for energy, and the sugar and the lactic acid kind of feed each other. So they make lactic acid that turns to glucose in the liver. That's more sugar. So you don't have to, keep eating it. If it's in your system, you got to get it out. So let's see, ketogenic diet is high in fat and low in protein and carbs and sugar. So that was one that this book liked. If your body is using ketones for energy, cancer cells are unable to do so and starve. So that's why the ketogenic diet has been, popular with cancer patients. High acidic diets produce a low oxygen environment in your body. And since cancer cells don't need oxygen and healthy cells do, it kind of slides the odds in the cancer favor of getting out of control in your body. So we want to have a diet that's got lots of alkaline things, healthy things that keep the acidic levels down. So acidic stuff would be the obvious things: junk food, processed food, sugar, alcohol, fried foods, things like that are acidic. Let's see. Collagen. She talked about collagen and how cancer attacks collagen in the body. Once it breaks through the collagen, it can invade different parts of the body. This is part of the process of metastasis. And to keep your collagen strong, and why a lot of people do the IV vitamin C, is vitamin C, lysine, and proline. Proline, I'm not sure what that is. But these are the building blocks of collagen. And so we want to keep our body's interconnection stuff healthy, and that's what the vitamin C does. The hormone connection, ovarian, prostate, breast, and uterine cancers are all driven by hormones. So chemicals like BPAs and plastics can increase estrogen in our system. So that's why one of the pieces of fighting cancer is to get all the toxins out of our environment, and stop putting them, on us with products like shampoo, sunscreen, things like that, because all of those chemicals increase our estrogen and can fuel these types of cancers that have a hormone connection. Melatonin is a hormone that produces anti-aging and anti-cancer properties, and this is naturally produced in darkness between 2 and 3 a.m. So that's a good way. I know a lot of people are taking melatonin. I don't know how much to take, so I'm not going to talk about that. Holly, maybe you know where we can get that information. But that's a good way to fight those hormones in your system. And she talked about enzymes. Cancer produces certain enzymes in the body, and this is what all of the early detection tests are based on. So Naegeli's, I don't know if I'm going to say all these correctly, goes up when there's cancer in the body. ENOX2 is a protein produced only by cancer cells. Thymidine kinase is present in the blood and is correlated with tumor development and progression. And PHI and CEA, which a lot of us get that CEA test, but for some reason it doesn't help the doctors figure out, it's not reliable with breast cancer to show that there's sometimes it can be low and you still have a recurrence. So enzymes implicated in the spread of cancer. She also talked about microbes and fungus and how they are found around cancer cells. It's not yet known if they cause the cancer or if they just take advantage of that acidic environment and start to grow around the cancer. So I know when I went to my homeopath, he found a lot of candida in my system, and I took a supplement called SF722 to help get rid of that in my system. I know some people are on nystatin, and when I was doing the chemo, the candida kind of went out of control, and I actually went on nystatin. My oncologist prescribed it because I had a yeast infection, and I know it was because I already had candida in my system, and then it took advantage of the fact that my immune system was lower during the chemo and kind of went crazy. So there are articles out there where EBV, which is the Epstein-Barr virus, and candida are talked about as causes of cancer. But in this book, she did not find any research to say that we can definitely say that it causes it. But they do know that they form around, microbes and fungi do form around the cancer cells when they're in our systems. So they have a lot in common with cancer. They use fermentation to breathe. They have a protective sac made out of protein around it to hide from the immune system. And that's why I don't know if any of you have ever had candida, but it's hard to get rid of because it does hide from your immune system. It also feeds on sugar, and you have to get rid of sugar in your diet to get rid of it. It really bogs down the immune system. I can tell you I felt so much better, and I kind of knew when it was gone, the candida. So let's see. In the book, they talk about getting rid of all the foods that have mold in them, and let's see, peanuts, cashews, corn, wheat, barley, cereal, and alcohol. So if you're following a vegan, no sugar, no grains diet, you wouldn't have those in your diet anyway, except for maybe the peanuts and the cashews. They're really known for mold. That's why it's good to use almond butter instead of peanut or cashew butter. The fungus cancer connection is real and was found 150 years ago by a doctor named Béchamp, it's French, and they just haven't done anything with that information. So we know it, we just aren't using it as a tool to fight cancer or get people healthy. There's an insulin connection with cancer as well. Insulin signals cells to increase rapidly and increases IGF. Individuals with high IGF are at a higher risk for premenopausal breast cancer, colon cancer, and aggressive prostate cancer. So that's another basis. This research about insulin is another basis for the early detection, the newer early detection tests. There's also a gluten connection because of the glyphosate. she believes that gluten in your system will cause cancer. And it has an opioid effect, and it makes you crave it, kind of like cheese, where you're thinking about that squishy bread and wanting it. It's addictive. Okay. So she also talks about chronic inflammation. So someone that has pesticides or mold in their house or mold at their workplace, chemicals around them, if you've had a lot of immunizations and your body wasn't able to clear the heavy metals, if you eat a lot of gluten, have a lot of low-grade infections, or use a lot of antibiotics, which I was getting a lot of sinus infections now when I look back. I was getting a lot of sinus infections and taking a lot of antibiotics to get rid of it when it was probably just that candida in my system anyway, and not a bacteria that I needed antibiotics for. So chronic inflammation kind of feeds cancer because of the acidic environment that it brings on. So we already know that genetics is only 5 to 10% of all cancers. So we have a lot of control over most cancers. In our cells, the part of our cells that she talks about as being responsible for cancer are the mitochondria. And those are the ones that make the energy cells, the ATP, the little energy molecules. And mitochondria are believed to be the root cause of cancer and metastasis. If you have cancer, your mitochondria are not producing enough energy to do their job well. So that's why we get tired. That's why we get sick. And then cancer takes over. So we already have talked about the stress connection so many times. It's mentioned again in this book. It's just a very important piece of staying healthy, is to stay stress-free, because we already know for sure that stress hormones cause disease and suppress the immune system. And trauma and emotional stress before diagnosis it's in all the research. It just fuels cancer. So that's why we do the TAT. That's why we meditate. That's why we pray. Just stay calm, right? That will help us stay healthy. So she also has a huge section in this book about the cost of cancer treatments, and I didn't really feel that was helpful or relevant to someone like me who's already been diagnosed and already been through the treatments. I'm lucky that I had insurance that paid for everything. I'm not sure why she decided to talk about the price and the price of surgery and the price of chemo and all that. There's a big section in the book about that. She talks about surgery, chemo, and radiation. She says surgery helps by staging a cancer, checking connectedness of the scans, correctness of the scan, and how well, because a lot of people talk about how it looked like there was not that much, and then they open you up and there's a lot more cancer. She also talks about how surgery reduces your tumor burden and helps your body get better that way. But surgery can weaken your immune system and put a lot of stress on your body. So there are ways to help get ready for surgery. My homeopathic doctor helped me get ready. My acupuncturist, Tunisia, I've interviewed her on here, helped me get ready. You want to be if you can take a break before rushing into surgery and get with, a naturopath or an acupuncturist and just take a few weeks to get ready for surgery, I think it would help you a lot. She also talked about the new surgeries that are coming about, the cryoablation, which I remember researching that before my surgery, but there was just nowhere that did it. And then also the CO2 laser. So the cryoablation freezes it off, and the CO2 laser burns it off, burns the tumor and the cancer cells out. The cryoablation sounded so good. I hope it is something that's working and becomes more of a trend, because you walk out of there. They don't even put you to sleep. They freeze the section of the tissues that need to be removed. They just freeze them, and then you stand up and walk out. They don't open you up. So I hope that gains popularity and works. Chemo is she talked about how we immediately go to these high dose chemos when a lot of people could just use the low dose approach. I guess that's the chemo pill, the Xeloda. she didn't name any names, but I'm just guessing that's probably something like that. And she said that chemo can cause DNA damage, and stem cells are chemo resistant anyway. And radiation can be combined with hypothermia to be 100% effective in killing cancer cells. This was kind of cool. I wanted to talk about this because it's a new, I don't know where you would find, the biggest problem I have with this book is she talks about all the newest things that are going on, but I don't know that most of us could actually go to our oncologist and say, okay, I would like hypothermia with my radiation. I just don't think that's happening right now. But she said that it's 100% effective in killing cancer cells, and is something that we should start doing with radiation, is hyperthermia, which is saunas and things like that. I guess we could do it on our own. It might be hard to convince someone with burning skin to go in a sauna, though. We would need some research, right? She also talks a lot about how root causes for cancer have not been researched enough, and if we knew the root cause, we could fix the problem better. And that she kind of has that big farm conspiracy theory feeling through the whole book, where they just want to make money and they have their drugs to sell, and that's all they're interested in doing. So that part kind of gives me anxiety, and I didn't enjoy reading that stuff. She believes that once you get a cancer diagnosis, you're kind of put on this path, and it's a treatment, you're being sold a treatment plan, and that we need to kind of stop right there and take a break, because cancers that have taken 4 to 8 years to grow in our system are not going to grow exponentially in those couple of weeks that we take to make our decision. I was guilty of this. I think I immediately jumped into treatment and I was misdiagnosed. So if I would have taken time, I probably would have had a better treatment, less harmful, maybe less chemo for sure. Because the cancer has been growing for years, and a couple of weeks of research and stopping and making sure you're making the right decision will help us. She also said never lose faith, because there is, at every single stage, there are people that recover. Now, what she talked about a lot, which I found extremely interesting, and I don't know why they don't do it here. I did ask for this when I first started my treatment, and my oncologist was like, we don't do that here. And I wish I would have, if I would have already read this book, I would have known that you can take your lab cells and send them off, if you have the money, to a lab in Greece or a lab in Germany and have them tested, because they will take your cancer cells and check to see which chemo works best on those cells. They also test alternative treatments and see which ones work best. So I think that would be amazing information. I don't know why oncologists in America don't do that immediately. That is called genotyping, I believe, chemosensitivity testing. It's expensive. It's about $1,500 at most of the labs. Let's see. One is called the AMAS test. One is called cell. A lot of notes, a lot of tests in this book. One is called RGCC, and I'm going to put all of the links to this, all of these labs and tests in the comments, so that if you guys are interested in a certain one for you or a family member, you can do it. Because I know a lot of us, so now we have cancer, our sisters have to be careful now and be screened. So I'm definitely having my sister take some of these early tests. So let's talk about the genotyping. It's early detection. The AMAS test is early detection. I'm sorry. So chemosensitivity testing helps you choose the best drugs for your tumor. The biggest lab that was talked about in this book was that RGCC lab, and each test was about, they send your cells off and then they test them in like 5 different ways. And then each test was like $600, and 2 of them were $1,400. So it could get very expensive quickly, but it would be amazing information to have. And I think in America, if we did it, our insurance company would cover it. It identifies which treatment will work best, how high your risk is for metastasis. They test 53 drugs and as many alternative treatments as they have at the time. I guess they keep adding to the alternative treatments. So to see which one works best for you. And that's rgcc-group.com. And it probably costs about $8,000. So it wouldn't be doable for a lot of people. But I think if we start pushing for, our doctors to do it, it's something that should be available here. Okay, so I highlighted all the pre-cancer screening tests. Two of them that I want to talk about for our sisters and people that are checking every year to make sure they don't have it because of a genetic link or something is Breast Sentry is a blood test by My Innovative Lab, and it measures 2 biomarkers to see if you have breast cancer, and it costs $300 if it's not covered by insurance, which isn't bad. It takes 10 days to come back, and it will show you if you have cancer years before it will show up on a scan. So it's so small by the time it detects it that you can do some alternative stuff to lower your risk before you start the big stuff. The other one was Videssa breast test. It's also a blood test. This company says they are 100% accurate in testing, and I don't know how true that is. And accurately detects all types of breast cancer before it can be shown on a scan, and that's called Videssa, Videssa, which I'm going to see if my sister can get one of those as part of her yearly checkup. And some of the other tests that they mention is the cancer profile, the CAP. My oncologist didn't even know what this was. It's an early screening tool for cancer. It's American Metabolic Laboratories.net. It's about $550 for the test, and it's blood and urine. And they can see if you have cancer 10 to 12 years before a tumor exists. That test does not tell you where the cancer is. It just says it's in your system, and it has not formed a tumor yet, so it can't be found on any screening at all. So some of the other early tests are Cologuard, colon health screening, colon sentry for colon cancers, early CDT lung test. And all of these tests claim to find the cancer before they become tumors, before they would ever be on a scan. The only one that can break the blood-brain barrier that detects cancer early was a test called HCG. It's a urine test, and it looks for cancer cells secrete HCG, so it looks for it in your urine. If you have a greater number of that, then you need to be further tested. So it's just a pre-screening. And I didn't feel like the accuracy of that one was very high because they said they did tests and 31 out of 70 it was accurate. That's not very accurate, but hopefully as time goes, these tests will get more and more accurate. There's one called the IV gene that looks for circulating tumor cells. Oh wait, I don't want to talk about that yet. Okay. There's also a test called the Naegeli's test. So they look for that in your blood to see if you have cancer. If you are pregnant, you also have Naegeli's. I don't know if I'm saying it right, in your system, because that's what our body secretes to protect the fetus, so that our body knows not to attack the fetus. So cancer cells use that same, they're sneaky. They use that same protein, the Naegeli's, to hide from our immune system. And it also goes down after surgery, chemo, and radiation. So they want you to take the test before, during, and after treatment to see where you need a before baseline if you're going to use it to test for recurrence, is what they were saying. And the presence of Nagli's protein in your system can diagnose cancer sooner than a CT or a PET scan. And research is being done to make it more widely used by oncologists. The 3 separate cancers that the trials were done and are breast, prostate, and colorectal cancer. So they did those. They also used a protein in that same lab. They used a protein, which I don't know if I'm referring to this correctly. It's called GCMAF protein. And it is a protein that they're introducing into the system to help fight cancer. And they've seen some remissions using this. It's some part of the vitamin D, which I know that somebody posted like vitamin D is better than the vaccine. And I think that's where it came from, because it fights this GCMAF fights the flu, cancer, and HIV. So my biggest problem with all of these tests, and Holly, I see that you wrote the grease test is controversial and not always accurate, is that the accuracies on these tests are not well proven. So not all of them. The Cologuard is being used now, the colon health stuff. The cancer profile, this is really interesting, and I don't know. They say you can make your own cancer profile test, and they actually give you like a recipe. Excuse me. So the next thing I want to talk about is the circulating tumor cell tests. There's a bunch of these. My oncologist had not heard of any of them and didn't think they were accurate at all. So I got excited about these tests, and then I talked to him, and then I'm like, So I'm going to share the information with you because it's interesting, but I don't know how much of it we can actually use. So the Biocept blood test is a liquid biopsy. It looks for the circulating tumor cells, identifies what type they are, and what therapies may be helpful. So it'll give you the number of the circulating tumor cells as well as specific biomarkers, which help you decide which therapy to use. Now, they claim it's 92 to 99% accurate. It's $700. It's a 2-part test, blood test, and it takes 3 to 7 days. But my doctor does not believe in it. He doesn't think it's worth getting. And the limitations that were mentioned in the book of this test is it's only effective on cancers with solid tumors. Breast, prostate, colorectal, lung, gastric, and melanoma cancers are the only ones that have been tested for accuracy. Excuse me, I have a little cold. So there's more circulating tumor cell tests. One is called the IVG lab test. It looks for circulating tumor cells, will confirm the presence of cancer, all stages of disease. It looks for a gene that is MYO1G. So if that's elevated, they're saying that correlates with having cancer. It's a $400 test. They're saying the reliability is 86%, which doesn't excite me. I want it to be a little higher than that. It's not covered by insurance, will not detect brain tumors due to the blood-brain barrier. It also claims to find cancer before scans can. And there were more tests talked about in the book, but because of she goes on to talk about these tests in greater detail in the next chapter. And there were a lot more tests talked about. The accuracies didn't excite me of these tests. I like the information about the cancer cells and learning how that they are testing the GCMAF protein to fight cancer. I believe that's part of the immunotherapy drugs that are out there now to help your immune system find it and kill it. I don't know that this is worth the purchase. If you have any specific questions or you want more information from this book, let me know and I will find it out of the book and give it to you. but I'm not really recommending this as a go out and buy it book. I did kind of send messages to people that are that have family members that have breast cancer about the 2 screening tests for breast cancer, but they are just screenings. I was really hoping with this book to find an accurate test that would say, for someone like me that is, I don't want to have a recurrence. I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to be late to the game if there's something I need to do. And I was hoping that one of these tests would be kind of that thing for me where I felt a little more confident in my cancer-free status. But the accuracies are just so low on these, and they're so much money that I don't know that I've found that in this book. So I'm going to keep looking for a test. I bet Holly already knows. You have so much information. I'm going to keep looking for a test to give me a peace of mind. I know my CEA is low, and my, like, all the ones that the oncologists run, I forget what it's called, the other tumor marker was very low, so I'll be happy with that. But I wouldn't go out and buy this book. Or if you have any questions, I like where it's going. I just don't know that we're there yet with these tests for early detection. Maybe for screenings for people that need to look further. So we don't have so many. She was talking about how there's so many biopsies for breast and prostate unnecessarily. So I guess all of the biopsies we do, there's a very high percentage, like 80-something percentage, where they are cancer-free, and they go through the biopsy and the scare for nothing because mammograms, ultrasounds, and I don't know, the PSA tests are not accurate enough. So I do agree with her. We need more early detection, and that would get rid of cancer. If you have any questions about the book, I'm going to post a bunch more. Some of it went above my head, if you couldn't tell with my stammering. But I'm going to post the stuff that I talked about and the places you can go to look it up. And I will talk to you soon. I have another book to read. So if you guys have a certain book that you want me to read and review, let me know. I will do it for you. I love to read. And it feels like, I'm doing something. Feels like homework to me. I like homework. So if you have a certain book you want me to read that I have not read, let me know, and I will read it and review it for you. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.